afternoon, friends. Miss Lorraine here in my kitchen, and as I posted in the Google Classroom, I am going to try to do a few of the science activity experiments, which I suggested for you to do today, or sometime this week if you would like. So a couple of them I'm going to do are the ones that I posted, and then I'm actually going to try experimenting a little with the activity experiment about solubility that I uploaded a video about. So first, though, let's do two versions of the taste testing video. And I apologize about the camera angles and stuff. Here was hard to get a good angle so you guys can see the counter area where I'm working, but as well see kind of most of me. So I'm going to be a little bit cut off some of the time. Sorry. The lighting's not great either, but you know, it's a kitchen. Got fluorescent lights. So I'm going to start first with the one about salt or sugar. So for that one, I have a couple of, these are actually just the lids for these 3 glass jars. I'm going to use them for this other purpose. And in addition to that, I'm going to use, I'm going to grab one more. Well, wouldn't you know it, had to be out of one more over there, so I guess I will use this bowl, which I'm going to use for something else later as well, but okay. So for right now, I've got 2 lids here, those are exactly the same, and then another lid and a little bowl for 2 different taste tests. So you can do this experiment with your family or someone in your family or a friend if you have a friend around to do this with. It would be more fun that way because obviously you're going to know which of the substances you're putting in which bowl or dish or lid, and you can't really trick yourself. You can taste test them, and then you can make some scientific observations. And you can write it down in a little journal or a piece of paper if you like, because that's what a scientist would actually do. But of course, because you are the one doing the experiment, you're going to know which is which, so it's not a surprise to you. So if you want to make it a little more fun and kind of trick people or see if they can guess, it would be better, obviously, to do it with someone else. So first thing I'm going to do is salt versus sugar. So I happen to have a couple kinds of salt and a couple kinds of sugar here. So that's why I thought I'd make it a little bit more fun. This type of salt is called coarse salt. It's coarse sea salt. So coarse means that the grains, each individual grain of salt is going to be larger. It's going to be more like a little rock, like a little crystal. It's not going to be so fine and powdery. So I'm going to show it to you, hold it and try to show it to you guys up close. You can see the grains, you can actually see they're individual, they're like little tiny rocks, right? So that's coarse salt. If you wanted to make it more fine, you will need to use something like this salt grinder. As you can see, I've used almost all of it because I love it. This is Himalayan pink salt I use for like most of my cooking. But you don't want to generally use it in these coarse grains like that. So you would grind it. And this has a built-in grinder, so you grind it up and it comes out very fine, like more like a powder. So and here I've got coarse sea salt. Now I'm going to take some fine granulated sugar. Now, of course, for this experiment to work really the best, or activity, it would be best if you had the same exact thing. Wouldn't you know it? I couldn't find it anywhere. I know I do. I just don't tend to use white sea salt very much in my cooking. Like I said, I use Himalayan pink salt much more. So I couldn't find any fine grained salt right now. I did have this coarse grained sea salt, but yeah, so I'm hoping if you do this experiment, it'll work much better for you if you're trying to kind of trick your participant, if they are the same grains. In other words, you need to find either both coarse or both fine. That way you can, trick them. Otherwise, you can see though that they are both white, so color-wise, they look the same. Now comes the taste test part. So when you're doing a taste test and an experiment, especially if anyone else is going to be participating and experimenting as well, and especially right now during this time when we're extra concerned about germs, you should always do it like this. So you choose one finger that you are going to use to put into the substance, or actually that's not even the best way. Let's say best way, take it from into another thing that is not going to be used by anyone else, and then sample it there. But in lieu of that, you can do this. I'm going to put a tiny bit on this one finger. Now I'm not going to stick that finger in anything else the rest of the time that I do this unless I wash my hands, because that would be reintroducing my germs into this dish. So I'm going to taste test it. Okay. Now, different finger. I'm going to take this one, and now it's going to be harder because these are coarse grains. It would work better if they were fine. But I'm going to try to pick some up. It's a little more challenging with my finger, and immediately, even before I get to the crunchy part, I can taste the difference. So see if you can do the same, or if you're doing it with a participant, see if they can do the same. They should immediately be able to tell the difference between the sweet sugar and the salty salt, right? Now, I'm gonna go, I'll move these to the side, and I'm gonna do something with another thing I have. Let's see, now I'm gonna see, those were the same color, but they tasted quite different. Let's try something else and see, what else could we, ooh, how about this? Could we try a little bit of the sugar, the fine sugar, and then I have another kind of fine sugar. Not quite as fine, but it's pretty fine. And this is called Florida Crystals is the brand, I think, but it's raw cane sugar. So it's sugar that has not been bleached or processed as much as the white granulated sugar has, but it's still about as fine. It's just a slightly different color, you'll notice. And it's gonna have maybe a slightly different taste. That's a good thing to find out. So again, if you want to try this out at home, you can ask your parents if they have this or if they're willing to get some. It is raw cane sugar. It doesn't really matter what color. Sometimes it comes on a little bit darker of a color. It looks more brown, like a light brown. But sometimes it looks pretty light like this. This is sort of like a, I don't know, kind of a creamy color. Creamy, slightly creamy tannish color. Now we can try taste testing those two. So again, let's add a little bit more because they're losing some onto the counter. I've got just what's called regular fine granulated sugar. It's white. And then I've got fine granulated raw cane sugar. Now I'm going to taste test them again. This time, remember, I'm using a different finger though. So I'm gonna put my ring finger in this time. Try not to lick it either, because then I'm putting germs in there. Thought about that after the fact. But since it's just me doing this, it's fine. But if you're doing it with someone else and like more than one other participant, it'd be very good, very important for you to practice good hygiene. So, okay, I taste that the fine granulated sugar, refined, fine. Refined is a good word for that. Refined means that it's highly processed. It's been bleached, and it's been going all through the entire processing that sugar basically can go through to go from its original state to its final state. This one has been processed not quite as much. It has obviously been turned into a crystalline form. It has been broken up in very small pieces, so it's granulated. However, it has not been bleached as much. It hasn't been processed as much. And I can swear you can tell the difference in the taste. They're both sweet and both subtly so, not like extremely sweet. But the raw cane sugar, I would say, has a slightly more, very slightly more caramelly kind of warmer taste. I don't know how to describe it. This one is just a little bit more bland, kind of plain. I don't know, it doesn't have quite as much of a richness to it. This one has a little bit more of a richer, a little more caramelly, warmer flavor to it. So, all right, so that was experimenting with the differences between salt and sugar, same color, different granulation. Sugar, same granulation, slightly different colors because of different processing. Now let's try using some of my precious Himalayan pink salt. I don't know if I can handle using a little bit of it. I'll try. And I'm gonna dump this out real quick. There we go. And right back. And I'm gonna use this one. Remember, I have to grind it up because I don't have any finely granulated salt that I can find at the moment. So I'm gonna grind some up in my lid here. I don't wanna waste too much of it, but I love it so much. But now you can see some, hopefully you can see. I have a little bit in there, and see how it does look a little bit pink. I love it. So it has a little bit of a color that's definitely more color than the white salt. So similarly to this organic raw cane sugar, this Himalayan pink salt has a little more color, a little more character, a little more flavor than your regular white one. So I'm gonna taste test these, and this might be fun to taste test with your participant too, if you have somebody to do this with you. So again, remember, we're gonna use a different finger, so I'm gonna use the middle one this time. So testing out the raw cane sugar. It's that nice round kind of sweetness with a little tiny hint of, I don't know what, roastediness, cooked, marshmallowy, caramelly, I don't know. And then now my Himalayan pink salt. Use the middle finger. They're not exactly the same color, obviously, but they both have some more color than the white does. Now, yes, that's salty, just like the first one was, but the flavor is so much more rich and round and complex. It's just delicious. I think it adds so much character to all your foods. So that's why I use it all the time. So I was taste testing with salt and sugar. Now, one final taste test before we move on to the solubility experiments. It's kind of like an extra taste test. This one is between two things that look kind of the same, but should taste quite different. Now, this might be hard for you to do if you can't find this, especially right now, because some stores are closed right now and it's not good to do a lot of unnecessary shopping. So you may not have this and you may not be able to do this experiment. But I happen to have this, and so I want to show you. You could do something in the future if you have a chance to get this later. And just to show you two things that look similar but are going to taste quite different. I'm going to do it over here off camera a little bit, and I'm not going to tell you which is which, what's happening, until you get a chance to see it. I'm just going to show it at the same time. So real quick, I'm going to go dump these out so I can reuse them. Should have came up with some more lids, but lids are kind of a premium in my house. I don't know why they're always disappearing. We have plenty of jars and containers that don't have lids. I don't know. So now, okay, I'm gonna go do this over here where you cannot see. I am going to grind up a couple of substances.
Three hours later.
Well, not quite yet.
Three hours later.
All right.
3 hours later.
Yes. Okay. Now, here we come back. And now I have two substances which look similar, but are, I assure you, quite different. So here they are. Now you can see that both of them have some black. Both of them have some white. Hopefully you can see that. I'll try to move in a little bit so you can. Maybe it would work better if I just put it in my hand. Okay, so you can see this one has some black and some white. Maybe you can see that it has a little bit of some other colors too. I'm not going to tell you that, though, give it away. Now the other substance, I'm going to put a little bit, this is very tricky, in my other hand without trying to make a giant mess. I'm kind of failing now. But that's okay. I'm going to clean my counters later, and they're modeled granite, so you can't see everything anyway. So here's the two substances in my hand, and yes, they do look different in that this one's definitely darker, but you can tell that this has, you know, black and white crystals. This has black and white little crystal type things. This also has some other colors. I'll give you a hint. This experiment, especially if you're doing it on someone else, they're the participants, would work even better if you used these, but only one kind, black ones of these. Unfortunately, I don't think I have. Ooh, that probably would work better. Ooh, I do. Let's try this again. Silliness, Lorraine. Okay, trying this again. I prefer to use the other of the alternative item I had just showed you, just because, like the Himalayan pink salt, the other one of that thing is my preferred one to use for cooking. However, for this experiment, the one I'm using now, here would definitely work better. However, the other reason I don't use this one is
Three hours later.
this takes forever. And
2 hours later.
almost there.
Meanwhile, tomorrow.
No, not tomorrow. We'll do it right now. Okay. It's not a lot, but it's enough, I think. So now you can see that the substance that I have in my left hand has black crystals and some like white crystals. And the substance that I'm gonna put in my right hand also has black crystals and white crystals. Also kind of appears to have gray crystals, which this one doesn't. Now it's taste test time. Okay. So since these are my hands, I'm not gonna put them in everything else. Should I do that? I'm not sure. How about let's just do this. Okay, take a pinch. Ready? Well, if yours are getting a little old, like those ones, probably because I don't use those ones a lot, then they might not have as much flavor as they're supposed to have, but they should have a definite flavor. And it should be doing a little tingling thing maybe on your tongue right now, or perhaps at the back of your throat. Now, try this one. This one tastes quite similar to this one. And do you know why? Because even though it is black, here's the part, the tricky part. Are you ready for this? It is actually salt. It is Himalayan black salt. I have Himalayan black salt, not Himalayan, Hawaiian black salt and Himalayan pink salt. As you can see, I haven't used a lot of the Hawaiian black salt. I don't know why, because it tastes really good. I should try it more often. So I think I'll go into that since I don't have a lot of this at the moment. Just like the Himalayan pink salt, it has a nice, really kind of complex, strong, salty flavor that is very, I don't know, it has more flavor, I'll just say that, than the baleen. The baleen's definitely salty, but it just doesn't have the same kind of complexity of flavor, which is very enjoyable when you're eating food, tasting food. So now I'm going to clean all of this up a little bit for you guys, and we will move on to the solubility experiment. So now this is the one that you can do about testing various substance solubility. And remember, solubility, if you watch the video that I posted to the class, Google Classroom, that a chemistry professor was explaining, that solubility means the ability of something, of a substance, to dissolve in liquid. In this case, it will be water, but it's how much it's going to dissolve and then like melt into the liquid and kind of become part of the liquid, or versus how much it will just separate itself and maintain its own, maintain its own layer, basically. So materials that are soluble will dissolve, materials that are not soluble will separate. So let's do a few different materials. We'll start with ones, and we do need water, of course. Yeah, and of course I did not bring very much water, nor a container for water. That's okay, because right down below, I have a measuring cup for water. So I'm gonna get some warm water. Well, I'm hoping to get some warm water here, because I think that might help to dissolving factor work faster. So you want to make sure that you have several different substances to try out. In the video that I posted, I think that the pepper is getting in the back of my throat. Excuse me, friends. Okay. Sorry about that. So the first substance that he recommended putting in one of the jars, remember, was some sugar, I believe. It's either sugar or salt. So we're going to put the same, and then we're going to put the same amount of each of the substances in each jar to make sure that we are being equal, right? So no, that part of the experiment is maintained the same. So that's what you would call a control in a scientific experiment. One of the controls is that the same amount of each substance will be put in the jar. And I also try to put exactly the same amount of water too. So I have right now 1 cup of water. So, and I put in 1 teaspoon of sugar. Now for the salt, I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of salt. It is going to be the coarse grain salt, because I'm not going to spend all the time to do the grind up the other salts. So this is sort of an experiment. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, how this will work as far as, will it slow down the dissolution, the dissolving of the liquid? Will it speed it up? Will it have any effect on it? I don't know. So we will find out. And then the last one I'm going to do, in the video, he has sand. If you don't have sand, I completely understand. I don't actually have sand either. But what I do have is some, I'll be right back with it. What I do have, if you guys recall, I had some stuff for the little terrariums that we had in the classroom. It's like peat soil. It's some kind of like a substrate. That's what it's called. It's called substrate, and it's like the soil, the ground kind of material that makes up your creature, your pet's home, like in their habitat. So I'll be right back, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, friends, so if you remember in the terrariums that I had in the classroom for the lizards and the little things that we found outside sometimes, I had this stuff called substrate. It was in a big block, and then I like put water in it and it kind of turned into this powdery stuff that like spread apart. But this is sort of like soil, sort of like dirt. So it's about as close to dirt as I have at the moment in here. So I'm gonna try using that and see how that'll work. I don't have sand, so we'll see how that works. Actually, you know, I do have sand somewhere. I brought from the classroom, and of course, I can't find it. You guys would not even, well, you might be surprised. I don't know if you'd be surprised or not. You would not believe how many things I have brought home from our classroom to try and have to do things, activities, and get inspired to share things with you here, just in case. So, my house is getting filled with classroom things. All right, so, and I'm just gonna add one more item, just for good measure. Another substance that he didn't have in the video, but I'm curious about this. So I'm gonna add pepper. And I'm gonna use my favorite kind of pepper. That was the one I started using at first, and then I changed my mind. Because you can easily tell the difference more between this pepper and the Hawaiian black salt I was using, because this pepper is a peppercorn medley, and it has peppercorns that are red, green, white, yellow, black. It's got a whole mix. That's my favorite kind, so pink even, I think. Yeah. But I thought the other one would look a little bit more convincingly similar to the black salt. Okay, that's probably good enough. So now see, I've got a jar. Well, let's make sure, because remember, we are trying to make sure we have the same amount on each one. That's right, so we have controls. So it was a teaspoon of the sugar and a teaspoon of salt. So I'm gonna do a teaspoon of the substrate in this one. And I will do only a teaspoon of the pepper. Okay, that is a teaspoon. Okay. In this one. All right. Now, let's find out what is soluble and what is not soluble. Now we are going to add, I have 1 cup of water. I think I'm gonna try adding 1/4 of a cup to each, because, well, let's see, let's do a little math here, friends. If I have 1 cup of water, which is 8 ounces, and I have 4 glass cups that I want to divide this water between, how many ounces do I need to put in each cup? Or to make it a little easier for some of you who haven't maybe quite gotten to that yet in math, if I have 8 ounces here, and I need to split these 8 ounces evenly between these 4 cups, how many times do I have to split it? How many times do I have to divide it to make it go evenly? Think about that for a minute. Well, I think if there's 4, maybe I should try dividing it by 4, because there are 4 glasses. So if I divide 8 by 4, do we know how much that is? I'm gonna say, I think it's gonna go down 1 space here, and then that would be 1 glass. Another space down to there, and that would be 2 glasses. Another space down to there, and that would be 3 glasses. And then the last space all the way to the bottom, and that would be 4 glasses. So I think maybe I need to divide it into 4. So maybe each one of these little lines here represents, well, it says on there, 1/4 of the cup, or another way to say that, 2 ounces. And your measuring cup hopefully says the same thing. If you have one like this, it should say 2, 4, 6, 8 ounces. It's letting you know. So I'm going to put 2 ounces in each glass. Very careful to make sure I only put 2 ounces so that the control is put in place. Remember, one of the controls is we want the same amount of substance in each glass. Another control is the same amount of water in each glass. And remember, the controls in a scientific experiment are the things which are going to stay the same for all of the elements in the experiment, or for all of the participants. They are the things that you can count on to not change, essentially. Almost there for this one. Now, I don't know if you guys can see this or not because the camera's a little far away, but I can see, and I'll show you in a minute. The sugar is already dissolving. It's doing it pretty quickly. And actually, so is the salt. Even though the salt is large crystals, it appears to be beginning to dissolve as well too. Now, I'm gonna go for the substrate. Remember, substrate is a fancy word for a special type of soil, which is designed for terrariums or creatures like lizards, frogs, small snakes, spiders even, like maybe tarantulas. Those types of creatures to live in if you have them as pets or classroom friends. Okay. Now already I can see the substrate is behaving differently than either the sugar or the salt. The substrate is kind of floating to the top and it's kind of just sitting there. Okay, finally I've got, let's see, the last 2 ounces I'm gonna put in with my pepper, ground up peppercorns. Now it's gonna look like it has more water because this jar is smaller. For those of you who are older, you probably understand how volume works. But for those of you who are younger, maybe you don't yet, and might be a little confused by that. And this is one of those mysteries of life, facts of science, that volume is referring to when, well, in this case, it's when a liquid is inside of a container. The volume of that container is how much liquid can go in there and be held. So even though this looks higher, the water looks like it's higher up in this container, there's not any more water in this jar than in this jar or this one or this one. But because these are taller and wider around than this one, it looks like there's more in here because it has pushed the volume of water up, basically. Or for us visually, that's what it looks like. So volume can be a deceptive thing. It can be a little bit tricky. Sometimes it can seem like something looks like it has more, and so that's why sometimes like it's easy to be tricked about when you maybe want a treat or you're gonna go order something. Well, when we can go back and order things inside restaurants, we might want to order like an ice cream, and it might look like one is going to be larger than another one, and you want the one that's larger, but depending on what size dish or cup it's in, it might not actually be any more than the other one. So you always have to kind of be careful, check and find out maybe what the actual ounces are of what the food or drink you're having is, and that way you'll know how much you're actually getting. It's not about what it looks like necessarily, it's about the actual ounces. So back to our experiment. Now I'm going to stir it up. Use a little chopstick. I have tons of these. I love chopsticks. Not just to eat with, but they're useful for all kinds of things like this. So I can see already. I'm going to hold it up and see if I can kind of tilt it towards you guys. Can you see that the sugar has pretty much already dissolved on its own? I am going to give it a little stir so that it has a chance to thoroughly mix with the water, and then we'll see what happens. Okay, I'm gonna leave it. Now I'm gonna show you guys the salt. Can you see salt crystals in there? Not sure if you can see them or not because the way this jar is designed, but there are still some salt crystals at the bottom. Maybe because the crystals were coarse grained, it's taking a little longer for them to dissolve. But I do see that they are dissolving. I'm going to mix the salt some more with the chopstick, just like I did the sugar, and kind of help it along. Let's see what it looks like in another minute. We'll come back to it. Now, let's take a look at the substrate. Ooh, very interesting. So can you guys see, I'm gonna try to put this kind of on the black background of my dishwasher. Can you see how there is a layer here? It's a little bit cloudy because there is some stuff mixing in with it. So there is a little bit of dissolution going on, a little bit. It's getting a little cloudy brown, but it's also still clearer and you can see through it, especially when you look up close more. The thick layer of brown is up here. So there's a thick layer of the substrate that's floating around on the top. So does that seem like it is dissolving? Not sure that substrate really has solubility. All right, let's go check out the peppercorns. Oh, I forgot. Before we do that though, let's be fair, controls. We're gonna apply the controls to all of them, so I need to stir it up. So let's go back. I'm gonna stir up the substrate real quick. It has an equal chance to dissolve as the sugar and salt too. And then we'll leave it and come back. Okay, last one, peppercorns. So the ground peppercorns. There's another one that's interesting. Check it out. So can you guys see? This one did something very interesting, I think. It separated into 3 layers, essentially. There's a bottom layer. I don't know if you guys can see in the jar down there. It's kind of like the bottom of the surface of the ocean or the bottom surface of a kind of muddy lake or something. Because there's like rocky looking ground up peppercorns on a bottom layer. Then there's sort of a murky but sort of clearish watery layer in the middle. Kind of like going swimming in a lake or the river. And then on top, floating, again, there's another layer of the peppercorns. So interesting. So it seems that peppercorns don't exactly dissolve, so maybe they're not exactly soluble in water. But to be fair, I'm going to apply the controls and stir the peppercorn water up real quick. And give it a minute. Step back, I'm going to give it a minute too. So we'll give it, let's see. We'll give it a couple of minutes. And I'll play this one for you guys.
There we go. 3 hours later.
How about
3,000 years later.
3,000 years? No, let's not do that.
75 years later.
75? No.
Much, much, much later.
Yes.
6 months later.
No.
A few moments later.
Okay. Here we go. Coming back again. Now, let's check final results, shall we? Ready? Final results time. Okay. Sugar. Sugar water. Look at the jar. Look at the bottom. Look all the way through. Can you see sugar in the bottom? Do you see sugar at the top? Do you see sugar anywhere? I don't. I literally just see what looks like water. I'll try to taste that. It's slightly sweet though. So yeah, the sugar dissolved in the water. So sugar is water soluble. Okay, the water with the salt. Now, because I used the coarse salt crystals, I think they're taking longer to dissolve than just fine granulated salt would. So I do see a little bit of salt crystals still floating at the bottom. Maybe you guys can too, I don't know. If I tilt it a little bit, maybe you can see, yeah, there's a little bit right there. Not much though. So you can see that the salt is in fact dissolving in the water as well. So salt is water soluble. Another test, the taste test. So here you go. Excuse me, friends. I know that was a little gross, but it was very salty. If you have ever done that, maybe if you've lost a tooth, that's an old wives' or grandma's remedy I've always used with my kids. I was told to use too. When you lose a tooth, you should rinse your mouth out with salt water to help stop the bleeding and help prevent infection. And it tastes like that. So I know that the salt has in fact dissolved in the water, and salt is water soluble. Now on to substrate, or basically soil. So soil, which is a fancy word for dirt, right? What does the substrate or the dirt look like? Don't think that's really water soluble. It hasn't dissolved. It's true there are particles of it which have kind of seem to be mixing through the middle layer of water, although they haven't completely dissolved. They just seem to kind of be floating around in there. But the majority of the particles are collecting in a thick layer up here, the top. And then there's a small thinner layer at the bottom, but much more at the top. Now, because this is dirt, I'm not gonna drink it, but I'm curious, I'm gonna smell it. To be honest, it doesn't smell. Can't really taste smell anything, so that's okay. I'm not gonna drink it because it's dirt, so. Last one, peppercorns. So let's take a look at the peppercorns. Now that we mix them, ooh, something interesting happened with the peppercorns. After we mix them and let them soak for a few minutes, we have a different result, somewhat. So if you look carefully, you'll notice that the peppercorns have indeed, just like the substrate, separated into 3 separate layers. There is a layer at the top, which is fairly, it's not solid, but it's got a lot of particles at the top, bigger, chunkier particles of peppercorns. And then it has a really nice, thicker layer at the bottom. It seems like more of the peppercorns settle at the bottom the way rocks would settle at the bottom of a river or a lake. However, unlike the substrate, it seems that the peppercorn water in the middle, that's just water, has kind of taken on a very darker color. It's no longer looking clear like our salt water, right? It's kind of brown, looks like dirty water. I'm wondering if that means that it's going to taste different. So since peppercorns is something you can eat, pepper's a food, I am going to try tasting it. Fair warning, if you do this at home, depending on your tolerance level for spicy foods, it might be a little hot. I personally love spicy food, so I think I'll be okay. But even so, I'm going to take just a little bit because I don't typically drink my spicy stuff. So let's see. Mm-hmm. Interesting. So my speculation, which is a big word, that means kind of my wondering, my theorizing about the peppercorn water taking on a little bit of the flavor of the peppercorns was correct. That's what's going on here. And I wonder if, like, I let this jar sit here for longer, like maybe overnight, the way sometimes people like to make sun tea in the summer. You can leave jars of tea and water outside overnight or all day during the sun, light in the sunlight, and let basically the sun brew tea for you. I'm wondering if I did the same thing with this peppercorn water, if I tried drinking some tomorrow, if it would be a lot stronger and a lot spicier, the same way that tea would be after you let it steep and brew for a while. I don't know. Well, there's only one way to find out, so, oops, that was a mistake. That's not the lid for that one either. So, well, I'm gonna have to find the lid for this one. That'll help. And then maybe I'll try it out and let you guys know in the next video or perhaps at our next Zoom meeting. All right, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video, and if you guys decide to do any experiments like these or even something totally different, but if it's related to science, and especially if it's related to edible science, I would love to hear about it. So please message me, post it in the Google Classroom, email me, or just come to the Zoom meeting on Friday and share with us. We would love to hear from you, or Thursday too. All right, you guys, thanks, take care, and I will see you next time. And yes, if you are watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to hit thumbs up if you like this video and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and then you'll get our videos as we produce them. I have been kind of out of the habit for a little bit, so I've been busy doing some other things for my classroom, but I will still do some videos from time to time. So I hope you enjoyed the science one. Have a great day, guys. Take care, be safe. See you next time.